Okay, so we're going to get started today. The good news for you guys is that there's a lot of time for you guys to work today, which is important. You got two handouts today. The first one is your assignment 205, which is the final for this class. There is still going to be an assignment 204 that you don't have yet. That's coming. That's why this is numbered 205. I guess I could just call it the final, but anyway, we're going to talk about this at great length today, and then you are also going to start working on it today. So exercise 218 talks you through starting to work on it. One of the things that I think is really important, especially in this class, is that as I go forward and I start to talk about things we're going to do, well, we'll get to it, but we're going to do interior and exterior day and night renderings as part of this assignment. And could I give you guys a sample scene and have you practice doing night renderings, for example, and installing lights? Yeah, I could, but you'll get a lot more out of it if you're actually working on your real assignment and you're putting the lights in your real assignment and figuring out where they belong and how they work and whatever. So I give you guys this assignment and then I give you time to work on it in advance of a lot of the lectures that are to come. And so we'll have some time in class today to actually get started. Unfortunately, because they shortened the semester by 2 weeks, I don't have as much time to give you. I used to give you like 2 full days in class to model. You guys will have to do some of it on your own. It is what it is. I didn't make the rules. So good news is you get out early and you got to start earlier. So, or start later and get out earlier. So it's good for you in some ways, bad for you in other ways. But you will need to put in some effort over the next week or so to really push your design forward, get a good concept in, get some really good modeling in, start modeling in some details, because it's going to take you a long time to get there. And the better and further along you are by the time we're toward the end of the semester, the better off you're going to be toward the final. And you don't want to wait until the very end to do all the renderings. So we will get into actually doing day render, night render, etc. They might not be the final versions, but if you have all the settings correct, I'll teach you how to save the settings, and you can swap between day and night and do those renderings later on and save your views, etc. So there's a lot of work ahead, but right now it's just about getting your design put together. So about the assignment, I'll refer to the online version, even though you have the paper version in front of you, just so that we can kind of talk through it. You're going to be building a very small artist's retreat. It's only 500 square feet. So for those of you that took 135 or are in 135 right now, it's half the square footage of that project. So we're talking small. The reason that it's so small is because I expect a high level of detail in this space. And that's why I give you a small space. If I gave you a 10,000 square foot house and said do a high level of detail, it'd be overwhelming. There's too much. So this is meant to be very small. It is accessible by hike, so you can't drive to it, so you don't get to do a garage, for example. So I'm cutting things out. There's reasons for it. Now, in terms of actually it being built, you don't have a budget. You have access to like a helicopter. You can fly in materials and that kind of stuff. So we're not worried about the cost and the fact that you have to hike, every sack of concrete on your back to this site. It doesn't have to be that specific. But I want you out in this remote area, so you're not thinking about cars. You're really thinking about the environment, the nature, and how you can make this a retreat for your particular artist. Now, I do this in kind of vague terms because depending on where you are in your academic career, you can take this a long way. You could do it very simply, and that is that this is designed to be a retreat for an artist. You could go do a bunch of research, pick an artist, and really design for that artist. If it was a Richard Serra building, you might be for him, you might be thinking about these Corten steel folding, twisting plates and be designing the building around that, potentially. You could take it all the way back the other direction and say, you know what, I'm just going to design something for myself because guess what, I'm an artist, and you have a lot of flexibility there. So you can take it in either direction. If this is something that's going in your portfolio that you're really trying to push as a big design concept because you need more in your portfolio, you might actually research an artist and work really carefully with that theme. So it's flexible, and it's supposed to be flexible. You're not going to be graded down if you choose to do a design for yourself as the artist. You're not going to be graded up if you choose to design a Richard Serra, for example. So just be aware of that in terms of the framework of what we're doing. I suggest that you have some kind of a, let me see, where it is it in here. Should include both interior and exterior places, reflect the nature of your artist, and you may locate your retreat on any portion of the site given, and we'll look at the site in just a second. The program is rather loose. You should consider having a sleeping space, a cooking space, a bathroom, a meditation space, and or an artist studio. If you want to modify that a little bit, that's okay too. It's loose, it's small. So a lot of double use space, that kind of thing. High level of detail is the important part. So under part 1, we're going to begin by selecting your site. I've given you 2 sites. I find the 2-site scenario to be useful. There's one that's on the California coast. It's up north a little bit, about an hour and a half from here or so. That's one option. The other option is up in the Sierras by Tahoe, and so you can pick that option. I give you these 2 different options because we all inherently are drawn to the beach or the mountains. We have this opinion about which is better, and you guys can pick, and that's why I gave you both sites. It's really hard to design for something you're not interested in. So I try to give you some spectrum, some decision making there. So we'll talk about the environmental conditions, etc. It's supposed to be a quick design, but I want you to be kind of really thinking about a lot of things. So think about prevailing winds, think about views, think about climate. All of those things can really enhance your design as a whole. You're going to build a computer model of your design, no surprise. You're going to build this structure in its own Rhino file. You can choose to include a little bit of site in that file if you really want to. I encourage you not to, though. You want it to be in its own file. And we're going to bring it over into a topography, an actual scene, to do the renderings. So we're going to set this up as a system of blocks. We have our house. Into that house, we can bring in blocks like furniture and whatever. Then we take that house and we put it in the scene. We modify the scene a little bit so it fits nicely. And then we do our renderings in that. And the advantage here, if you set it up that way, is if you're working at home in some place where there isn't V-Ray, especially when lights get involved, you won't touch the file that has V-Ray. You only touch the file that you're doing the renderings on in the lab. So you won't mess things up. You can work on your Rhino file wherever you want because that's just bringing in as a block. So we want interior details as well as exterior details. You're going to be doing an interior day and night rendering and an exterior day and night rendering. So we're seeing both views as part of your renderings. Now, you guys have a lot of control about what I'm seeing when I look at your renderings. So for example, you may decide that, you know what, I don't want to model the kitchen. So you show me renderings that don't show the kitchen at all. You have control over that. Now, when I see the floor plans, okay, you might have to do a little bit of work there. But the point is that you control what is heavily modeled and what isn't. So if you have something that you're really passionate about and you want to show that in your renderings, show me that. Spend your time on something and then control that. You'll see in the sample file that I'll be working on, the back side of the building is very not considered. But the front side renders really nicely. And because I've spent the time making sure the front side looks good from the outside. The back side, is not important. So be aware that you have that kind of control. Let's see here. Okay, so you're going to be making one exterior day rendering, one interior day rendering, one exterior night rendering, and one interior night rendering. The night renderings will have to have lights installed. That's the only way it's going to work. That's obviously on purpose. I'm going to teach you how to do lights and install lights and design light fixtures, etc. But this is also really important. I need these 4 renderings as part of your final. If you turn in one of them or you turn in 4 interior renderings, you won't get credit for the exterior renderings. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to beat you over the head with it right now. So I'm asking for these 4. If you turn in 4 exterior renderings, let's see, 4... I don't know, so let's say you turn in 2 exterior daylight renderings. I'll pick the best one, what I think is the best one, and grade that one, assuming you've turned in the rest of the stuff. But an exterior day rendering doesn't count as an exterior night rendering. They're separate things. Am I very clear on this? Okay? Do you think I've had trouble in the past with people doing this? Yes. Okay? I do not want to fail you in the final. I want you to do well. Okay, so now that that's nice and clear, you're going to print each of those in color on 11 by 17. In color on 11 by 17. Okay, good. Next thing, part 4. Because it's great to have beautiful renderings, but it's even better to have line drawings out of your 3D model file. We're going to make sure that you do line drawings out of your 3D model. Okay, this is important because as you go forward, you're going to need to spend time modeling in 3D, but then get something productive out of your 3D model. Yeah, it's great to have beautiful renderings. Absolutely, everybody loves that. But if you spend all this time modeling in 3D and then you can't produce floor plan sections and elevations, why'd you spend all the time? So I want to make sure that you can get those out. So you're going to do 2 of these. It's a line drawing with the clay rendering behind. Don't worry, I'll explain what it is and how to do it. You're going to do 2, and you can pick between a plan, a section, and an elevation. So you could do a plan and a section. You could do a plan and an elevation. You could do a section and an elevation. So you pick 2 of those 3 views. You don't have to do all 4 elevations, just 1 elevation. You will also print those on an 11 by 17 piece of paper. So you will turn into me a total of at least 6 pieces of paper that are 11 by 17. 2 with drawings on them, 4 with renderings on them. If you want to do more, you can always turn in more. I will never hurt you for turning in extra stuff. But you still have to make sure you satisfy all the requirements. Okay? Okay, part 5. 11 by 17 sheets. You're going to turn them all into me on the 12th at 11:10. I will set them all on the back table so people can look through them. You guys will eat your donuts. You guys get the plan. You know how that whole thing works. The exhibition of work will be between 11:30 and 12:30. At 12:30, I will end the class. Never mind. At 2:15, I will end the class. Sorry, final schedule changed, so it goes a little bit longer. I have to go the full length of the class. On the 12th, you need to have posted all of this. You need to have finished everything that is about this particular class at 2:15 p.m. If you make a comment at 2:16, it will not count. If you post something at 2:16, it will not count. Does that make sense? Okay, class is over at 2:15 for the semester at that point. Okay, so we get all the way down to the bottom. Let's talk site, because it's far more exciting than me preaching about all these renderings that you have to do. We have the PDF, which you guys all got printed. The other piece here is the zip file with the site information. I went ahead and already downloaded it. And inside of that folder, we have a couple different things. We have, right here, we have SketchUp files that represent each site, the terrain. You guys could go find them, but I went and did it for you. I have Google Earth files. Google Earth is not installed on these machines, so we're going to do it online in just a second. And I also have AutoCAD files of the topography. I don't think I've ever seen anybody use the AutoCAD files, so I'm not really sure why I still include them, but they're there if you want them. So let's look at the sites themselves. Google Earth, like I said, is not installed on the machines. So if you go to google.com/earth, you can load up Google Earth. You have to click the blue button in the middle here for Launch Google Earth, and it'll work in your browser. And there we go. If it's the first time that you've opened this, you'll have to enable importing KML files. And you can do that by clicking on the little 3-line thing in the upper left corner here, going to Settings, and at the very bottom of this page, it says Enable KML File Import. You'll have to toggle that switch to on, and then click Save. Once that's done, we can go into the 3 lines, go to My Places, and Import KML will show up here. So I'll click on that, and I'll say From File, and I'm going to go into my, let's see, here it is, 205, and I'll pick the first one. There's Site 1, and we'll go ahead and say Open. All right, so this is the Tahoe file. And it always helps to see things in 3D a little bit so we can get a sense for what's happening. So I've picked this little ridge here. The site includes the top of the ridge, which is relatively flat. If you're worried about doing renderings or doing modeling on a slope, you can pick the flat part at the top of the hill. You can cut through the hill a little bit if you want to embed it. You can be perched out on the cliff. You can do it in the bowl here. This obviously gets a lot of snow in the winter. And so let's zoom out a little bit so we can see a little bit more here. There we go. And let me do 3D again. There's Tahoe right there. So I assume several of you have been to Tahoe before. This is on one of the mountain shoulders looking out across Tahoe. It's a pretty cool view from up there. It is not the highest peak. Over here is the higher peak. So you're on kind of one of the shoulders here in that little alcove. Should give you a little bit of sense of what's going on. Nice views. In terms of climate conditions, etc., the winds, the prevailing winds, in the mornings, they tend to come off the lake and come up the slope. In the afternoons, they tend to come down slope. They will crest over the top of this leading into the Tahoe Valley, so you get some wind coming across the top there. It's pretty wide open. You're going to get plenty of sun. Your primary views are toward the north, kind of northeast a bit. And so you guys can experiment around with that a little bit in terms of seeing where you are, etc. Anybody hiked up here before? It's a great area to hike.
It is.
Yeah. Totally worth it if you're up near Tahoe. I would argue that the view from the top of Mount Tallac here is one of the best views from a mountain peak that you could possibly go to. It's way better than Half Dome. Half Dome, the hike is fun, but the view from here is a lot better. So, yeah, Half Dome is like a freeway going both ways. This is much less. Anyway, I personally have done a lot of hiking back up in here. That's why I picked it. Okay, so that's the first site. I'm going to discard that site information, and I'm going to import the second site. The second site is right here. And so we're going to jump away from Lake Tahoe for a second, and we're going to come out to the coast. And there we go. This is Tomales Point. In terms of understanding where we are a little bit, this whole seashore here is the Point Reyes seashore. We're back over here. Pleasant Hill, there we go. So it's not too far away, though it would take a while with traffic to get there. But you could actually visit it. So in this scenario, you're out at the end of this point. You're close to civilization. This is like regular civilization over here. This, however, is not because you have this barrier. So if you were getting here, you'd have to cross over and then hike up north to get to this point. So you're right out here at the point. Anywhere along these bluffs is kind of what we're talking about. Similar site setup in terms of a flat top and a hilly side. So you see, I'm trying to make this even when you're selecting your sites. The geography is very similar. Difference here, obviously, is that your views are going to be out toward the west. That's where the sunset's going to be, and that's obviously where the ocean's going to be. And but you still have flat on top. You have the cliffs on the side. You can choose to build either way. I'm not worried about structural integrity building on the sand cliffs. We're just assuming it's nice and solid, and we're not going to worry about it. Okay, that's fair. So that's your second potential building site. I should switch into 3D here a little bit so you can kind of get a better sense of what those cliffs look like in terms of selecting your building location. You should be fairly familiar with the weather in this kind of a scenario. It's a Northern California coast. It tends to be on the cold side. No surprise. It tends to have a lot of fog, though you can get the sunny hot days too. You're going to get fog in the mornings, fog in the evenings. You may or may not see the sunset because of the fog. It depends on the weather. But you're also going to be fairly consistent. It's always going to be between 50 and 60 degrees. That's like the standard temperature, except for those odd days in the summer where you get a little bit more. So anyway, this is your second building site. You can choose to pick here if you'd like, and you'd like to work. For both of these sites, I have information for you. In this case, I have, obviously, we can get the site terrain information for this, but I also have a file that you're going to use to represent the ocean and to be able to render out what the ocean looks like. Similarly, up in Tahoe, I have the background information for you. I have the ability so you can render what the background looks like with the lakes and that sort of thing. So it's meant to be fairly even. So depending on which site you pick, you should have the supporting information that you need to be able to do the renderings as you wish. Okay, so I'm gonna turn you loose. I'm not talking that long today, like I said. Don't waste your time. Now is not the time to waste your time because you need this information. You need to start modeling. You need to have a well-developed site, a well-developed building. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be struggling later on. So really try to use your time now to do that. That's why I'm giving you the whole day to work on it. Okay? Remember the system of blocks. So if you want to put windows in your drawing, make a block that is the window, reuse that over and over again. If you want to put furniture in, you can use any furniture that you can find online. That's fine with me. I would encourage you not to pay for it because you don't need to spend a lot of money to do well in this class. But if you go to Flying Architecture, any of the free furniture that they have, you can use that for your renderings. All of that stuff can come in as block references. That's fair game. Anything that you did before, if you want to include the table and chair that you did in the first assignment and put that in here, that's fine too. So this is really about showcasing your work to the absolute best of your abilities. Are there any questions about this? Yeah?
Can we do the plans and the design, like the basic design and the ideas on AutoCAD and import it to Rhino and model it?
Sure. That's fine. If you feel more comfortable doing it that way, yeah, no problem. Any other questions? No? Everybody's heads are down. That's a good sign. Okay, so I'll turn you guys loose. Spend some time looking at this, though. Become familiar. Google pictures. See if you can get some pictures of what it looks like, so that you have some idea of the building site and that information. Okay? All right, I'll let you guys go.